In stark contrast to the stale, unsaid tension that had been the standard in our lives, there was a strong scent of pine in the air. Living in a suburb, Christine had been persistent, almost desperate, about this couple retreat. It was a chance to reconnect over a weekend in a cabin in the mountains away from the digital world. She had expressed anxiety in her eyes, which I had decided to ignore, attributing it to stress at work. Since we hadn't been getting along for a while, I foolishly believed that maybe this retreat was an olive branch. After months of this impenetrable wall between us, our intimacy felt like a hollow performance punctuated by her absence on the stairs. Even when she was physically in the same room, I tried to break through, but it was like talking to a ghost. The lodge itself was charming and rustic, nestled among towering redwoods. The receptionist was a woman with kind eyes and a name tag that read Brenda gave me the check-in paperwork and a welcome packet after giving us a warm greeting. As I took the clipboard, I felt hope for the first time in months. I told her, "You have a lovely spot here," and I truly meant it. "Thank you, sweetie, and have a great time," Brenda said with a knowing smile before pointing to a small desk where I could fill it out. She nodded to a nearby pen and said, Chris had gone to use the restroom with the small heels of her boots clacking on the wooden floor. I unfolded the paper, my hand hovering over the first line, address emergency contact, typical stuff, but then, near the bottom, a familiar name jumped out at me screaming across the sterile white. It wasn't our usual medical contact, but there was a name next to his written as emergency for what I assumed must be my wife Dylan. I felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't just the name, though. It was the way Christine had always said it, like a soft whisper that was never loud enough for me to truly hear or understand. A hot, acidic burn began to crawl up my throat as 1,000 tiny pieces clicked into place. It all made terrible sense, the late nights at work, the secrecy surrounding her phone, the withdrawn distance. My eyes were fixed on the check-in sheet, where the other names were directly above Dylan's anger bubble. I had suspected it vaguely, but seeing it on paper was the hard confirmation. It was as if an invisible fist had struck my stomach, forcing out my breath, leaving me gasping, that this wasn't the woman I thought I'd known, the woman I'd married. Christine returned and found me. I held out the check-in form from my finger, tracing the damning words, and she followed it, her tan turning the color of ash as she halted in place. Frozen by the small desk, she inquired, her voice showing only a flicker of fear, maybe something more. A tremor went through her hand, her eyes widening in silent panic. "How could you?" My voice came out as a hoarse whisper. She started to stammer. It's not but the lie wouldn't form. She'd been so sure of herself, so confident, like she could continue to play out this fake marriage to keep whatever twisted situation she'd gotten into, but in that moment all of the confidence was gone. She could see on my face that her game had just ended. "It's not what? It's not his name. It's not an emergency contact. Did you think I wouldn't see it? Is this what a chance to reconnect looks like to you? Did you think you could sneak away to your lover without me seeing it, when all along you've tried to hide him from my life?" I could feel myself starting to raise my voice, a roaring thunder starting inside my chest. Her eyes welled up. The false display of emotions now infuriated me even more than hours before. "I'm so sorry," she finally whispered, the words falling flat. There wasn't conviction behind it. Her tears only seemed to aggravate me almost as much as the Lee she had been living with, and I would finally see them for the complete scum. I had worked so hard for this, for us, the house we bought together, all of our shared dreams, and she had been throwing it all away for a casual affair with this guy she barely knew as a professional. The rage started to come to the fore, and it wasn't calm or controlled, but the most angry I'd ever felt in my life. I apologized, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is our entire life, and you're just sorry. Where's the sincerity? Where's the goddamn human? I gave you everything, and now you're giving me this? Why do you act like such a monster and toss other people out?" I began to lower my voice no more. "Let me tell you what we're going to do here, Christine. You're going to pack your bags and leave. You're no longer wanted in my life." Her eyes widened even more as she stood, whispering that my body shook as if it couldn't control the wrath. Her meticulously crafted facade broke and finally crumbled, causing frozen tears to fall down her cheeks. Brenda at the front desk began to look at us with concern. She didn't seem overly concerned, but when I started to get loud, she began to stutter and hold up a hand in a pitiful attempt to stop me. I grabbed the key off the desk and said, no longer feeling pain, only cold calculation, "Go pack up what little belongs to you and be out here in 5 minutes or you will be dragged out myself." Her face turned pale, and she said, looking defeated, "I can, Christine, because for better or worse you threw away better a long time ago. There's only the worst for you from here on out, and my God, I'm going to watch as you sink." I stood in the narrow hallway feeling a strange mixture of holes and a perverse sense of satisfaction as Christine ran off her shoes, tapping frantically on the wooden floor. I wanted to drag it out to punish her in ways that had just come to me, but the sight of the broken woman packing her belongings gave me a sense of closure that was far stronger than my melancholy thoughts. I waited for her outside, not saying a word as she came out with the luggage. She didn't meet my eyes and went right to the parking lot. Her silence was much louder than anything she could have said. My Uber arrived in minutes and I loaded her suitcase into the trunk without turning. Without another word I closed the trunk, got in the car and shut the door on what had been our marriage. The whole time she did nothing, didn't make any sort of move, look at me, or make some kind of pitiful effort to try to stop me. It wasn't needed. She understood it was over. I paid the Uber driver to take her to the nearest town to where she could try to figure things out herself as she had done to me. As the car pulled away I watched her shrink away in the rear-view mirror, and I knew in that moment that while it was a harsh lesson for both of us, I'd finally found my peace. It wasn't the reconnecting I thought it would be, but it was the start of something new, and as far as I was concerned the only type of reconnection I needed. A disconnection to her for good. I returned to the lodge. Brenda gave me a sympathetic smile and handed me the keys to my now single-person cabin. We can always use an extra set of towels and I can add breakfast to your stay. That would be great, I said as I took the keys. I felt the last vestiges of hurt start to leave my chest. This retreat was supposed to be a chance to save us, but she'd never given us a chance. Now though I did have a chance, and for the first time in a very long time I didn't have to wonder what my wife was doing or who she was doing it with. I spent the weekend hiking through the woods, the crisp mountain air clearing my head one step at a time. The lodge had an open fire pit and I met several interesting, funny people. All of us laughed together. This wasn't the plan, but in retrospect it felt right. I felt like myself again, the kind, loyal, trusting person that I had been before all this chaos. I could laugh again even though I didn't think it was possible. Not anymore. As I drove home on Sunday evening I didn't feel the burden of sadness or grief, only a quiet, hard-earned understanding. There were no feelings left, nothing to hang on to, only a need to continue my life. Christine's lies had all but destroyed me, but now that the storm had passed, I was even more relieved that she was no longer involved. As I pulled into my driveway, my own private area, I realized that the only way I had ever needed to reconnect was with myself in a peaceful mountain retreat with just me and me. Although the trip had not been pleasant, I could be